Assalamu alaikum and good morning to all. It's a Friday morning, it's the start of the weekend, and
Alhamdulillah, today is the birthdays of the Holy Prophet's great-grandson and Shaheed of Karbala, Hazrat Ali Akbar, peace be blessings upon him, son of Imam Hussein, peace be blessings be upon them.
Yeah, it's an important time to remember him, and this week the celebrations continue, alhamdulillah. Today the celebrations start with Brother Mustafa Ali with our very important Holy Quran recitation with ayahs from Surah Maryam.
Looking forward to that. And straight after that, we have Brother Ibrahim Ansari on the couch with daily du'as, which include beautiful recitations and explanations. And today is about Ziyarah of Hazrat Ali Akbar.
We also have psychotherapist Brother Bilal Ali dropping by to discuss addiction affecting many people in our community.
Please do watch if you've been affected, as we're here to help. Today we have beetroot and red onion salad with life coach Fahima Muhammad and Sister Sana, so looking forward to that.
Sounds great, sounds great. We also have your fiqh questions and queries answered by our very own Sayyid Mohsin Shah. And today's discussion is about pet keeping.
One of
Cats,
my favourite
dogs, guinea pigs.
For competition details, please stay tuned. We have Brother Mustafa Khadib.
The holy city of Karbala is home to tragedies, heartbreak, as well as treasures and wonders. Millions from around the world come to this sacred city with their prayers and tears. As well as being home to Imam Hussein Media Group, it's the home and resting place of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and his brother, Abu Fadhil Abbas alayhum as-salam. Imam Hussein sacrificed his life for the sake of truth and preservation of the religion and teachings of his grandfather, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Imam Baraka says, order our Shia to visit the shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, since doing so increases sustenance, extends life, removes evil, and that visiting the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is a duty upon every believer who believes in Imamate from Allah Almighty. So we invite you to come to Karbala and come to visit your Imam and perform ziyarah. Unfortunately, not everyone can come visit Imam Hussein. Not everyone has the ability or opportunity to visit regularly, and that's why Morning Baraka is giving you the opportunity to perform ziyarah from your very homes. We want you to send in your du'as and names of your loved ones so we can recite the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam on their behalf. Maybe you have a loved one whose name you want to put forward, a marhum who would benefit, or maybe you miss Karbala and yearn to see Imam Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him. Why not send a small message or a dua for us to read here in the holy city of Karbala? Whoever's name you put, whatever dua or small message you have, the Morning Baraka team will pass it on to our team here in Karbala, and we will recite the ziyarah, read the message, and broadcast it on Imam Hussein TV3. Send in your names, du'as, and small messages to Morning Baraka at @imamhussein.tv, or message us or leave a comment on any of our social media platforms. We look forward to hearing from you, and may Allah and the Ahlul Bayt accept all of our a'mal and our ziyarah, inshallah.
Yes, welcome back, and to kick-start today's series or today's episode of Morning Baraka, we're of course going to be joined by Mustafa Ali. Mustafa, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Alaikum salam. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Today, inshallah, you're going to be reciting Surah Maryam, verses 93 to 98. So over to you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن كل من في السماوات والأرض إلا آتي الرحمن عبدا. لقد أحصاهم وعدهم عدا وكلهم آتيه يوم القيامة فردا إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات سيجعل لهم الرحمن ودا فإنما يسرناه بلسانك لتبشر به المتقين وتنذر به قوما لدا وكم أهلكنا قبلهم من قرن هل تحس منهم من أحد أو تسمع لهم ركزا صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Many thanks for your time once again and for your beautiful voice, Mustafa Al-Ali, to start the show. We're now joined by Ibrahim Al-Ansari. Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim.
Alaikum assalam.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah. How about yourselves?
Doing well, doing well.
Good, thank you very much.
It's definitely
Yeah.
part of the show that me and Zahra definitely look forward to, because from the many episodes that we've had with you before, it's a part of the show where essentially, just for the benefit of the viewers, the daily du'as. So the supplications, the literature of the Ahlul Bayt, the vehicles in which we discuss with God subhanahu wa ta'ala that the Ahlul Bayt used, we kind of shed light on some of the parts that people don't put much emphasis on, and hopefully kind of disseminate some new wisdom, new knowledge that people didn't know about. And Ibrahim, you do this perfectly. We very much enjoy our time with you. Yeah.
Your good thoughts. Jazakumullah khair.
So I think from the last episode we discussed the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and in the last line there was a particular area that mentioned وَأَطَعْتَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ حَتَّى أَتَاكَ الْيَقِينَ. So we were discussing a lot about yaqeen, and we kind of focused on that. We didn't have much time, so I think this episode we'd love to kind of get more information about yaqeen. And I think off air, me and Zahra were talking about yaqeen from a fallible perspective. So from an infallible perspective, as Zahra and you were mentioning, he's an infallible, so he understands yaqeen before. So he understands what certainty is before that event arises.
Yeah.
But okay, leaving that to one side, let's focus on a person who's fallible, and it being the birth of Ali Akbar alayhi salam, and during the month of Sha'ban. We wanted to kind of shed light on that aspect. Zahra, what do you think?
Absolutely, beautifully said.
Yeah? Yeah. So tell us, firstly, in terms of Ali Akbar alayhi salam, who he is, what his life was about really, and the aspect of his certainty, because he had a very strong stance in Karbala, and his certainty when it comes to the discussion that we had.
Definitely. Ali al-Akbar, the son of Imam al-Hussein alayhi afdal salatu wassalam, the son of Layla, who was his mother. Of course, Ali al-Akbar, as a status and in terms of who he was, it is possibly one of the best examples that a fallible can take from another fallible. So Ali al-Akbar, he wasn't part of the Imams, he wasn't an infallible per se. He was a normal human being just like we are, fallible, could possibly make mistakes, but chose not to do them. You see, once we have asma, and this asma comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, And once we have isma, and that isma is chosen. So you choose to be infallible. Ali al-Akbar chose this infallibility. Just like Abu Fadhil al-Abbas chose to be infallible. Just like Sayyidah Zainab chose to be infallible. This infallibility, when we say that they are infallible, we do not mean that they are infallible in the sense that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purified them in that sense, in the way that He purified the Imams. But no, they chose to not make mistakes. They chose to become infallibles. His status was so high to the extent where that when he goes into the battle, Imam Hussein would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he says, Allahumma shahad, O Allah witness, that baraza ilayhim ashbah an-nas khalqan wa khuluqan wa mantiqan bi Rasulillah. That towards them has gone to battle the one who is most like the Prophet in terms of how he looks, his manners, and how he speaks. Now realize that Imam al-Hussein is saying that he is the one that is the one who's most like the Prophet. He didn't say that he is the one, as in Imam Hussein didn't say that about himself. He didn't say that about Imam Zainul Abidin, who is Imam Ali al-Akbar's brother. Of course, narrations differ. Some say that Imam Zainul Abidin was older, some say that Ali al-Akbar was older. Doesn't really matter in terms of these discussions. So he said that he is the one that looks most like the Prophet. Now also when you come to Ali al-Akbar and you wanted us to talk about yaqeen, it is because of the certainty that he had in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the message that Imam Hussein wanted to carry on, that when the companions of Imam Hussein all were martyred, Ali al-Akbar was the first to come to Imam Hussein and he said to him, Abba hal min rukhsah? Oh father, do you allow me to go forward to battle? And at that moment Imam Hussein didn't say yes. His eyes teared up, and Ali al-Akbar knew that this was his okay, let's say, his confirmation for him to go into the battlefield. So he had that sort of yaqeen. Now how he attained that yaqeen as a fallible is through the same way that the infallible gains their yaqeen. That is through knowing Allah and the Prophet. In one word, it is taqwa, piety. When the Quran comes in Surah Al-Hujurat and it says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. The one who is closest, the one with the greatest status towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has most piety. When we come to look at what taqwa is, taqwa in simpler terms is obedience towards Allah and His Prophet. Why? Because taqwa in essence is God consciousness. If you are God conscious, it means you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to obey His Prophet because He ordered to do so. Therefore, the more you reach in depth in terms of obedience, the higher your status rises until you reach a state of yaqeen. Just like in Ziyarat Warith, hatta, until attack al-yaqeen, until you reach the status of yaqeen. And if a fallible person like Ali al-Akbar was able to do so, if Sayyidah Zainab was able to do so, regardless of us mentioning that they were brought up in such a household, we are able to do so too, without a doubt.
Yeah, definitely. So, do you want to explain, go further into what you've chosen today to recite?
So this is the ziyarah of Ali al-Akbar. Now one of the amazing things about Ali al-Akbar is that when you go to ziyarah of Imam Hussein, is you will find that the place he is buried in is by the feet of his father. Now the thing is, by the feet of his father, that specific area is in fact the exact area which lies exactly under the dome of Abu Abdullah Hussein. When we come to look at the merits of Abu Abdullah Hussein, we say, for example, the poet Sheikh Yasin al-Kufi, he says, Allah خص حسين بثلاثة خصال وشرفه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Imam Hussein 3 attributes. مستجاب الدعاء بقبته لو دعا الداعي ولفه. The dua is accepted for those who make dua under his dome. And of course جعل من نسل الأئمة, the Imams come from his progeny, and تربط بها الشفاء. His sand, it has shifa.
Yeah.
So this direct state, this direct position, this direct coordinate under the dome of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein is in fact also right next to the body of Ali al-Akbar. And personally I think that even expands his status. That if you stand by the feet of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and by the body of Ali al-Akbar, that is where your dua is definitely mustajab.
Interesting.
So should we move on to recite the dua?
Yeah,
inshallah?
please.
The ziyarah, sorry.
You give us so much food for thought.
Yeah.
I think we just kind of
We're like, yeah, you're right.
digesting. That's amazing.
So the ziyarah goes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulillah. Assalamu alayka ya ibn Nabiyillah. Assalamu alayka ya ibn Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayka ya ibn al-Hussein al-Shahid. السلام عليك أيها الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
I think his martyrdom is just, it's one of the, I mean, they all have their significance, don't they? But I think with his, and however the narrations are of Imam Hussein, you know, whether he was martyred in one place and Imam Hussein ran the opposite way, the grief of a father to have such a young son, and you know, his characteristics are beautiful. I know there's a narration of him telling, of Hazrat Ali Akbar telling his mother that, you know, put the pan of water boiling in our house so that when people pass, they think that we have food cooking, so that they may come in and we can serve them. And you think the generosity of Ahlul Bayt, and you know, and their children, how they thought, and such a beautiful character to have to then on the day of Ashura see that child, you know, and in the condition that he was martyred.
That is because of the certainty that they had reached. So for example, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was ordered to slaughter his son, Ismail, Ibrahim did not doubt it for a second. He put his son forward to be slaughtered. Why? Because he has certainty that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders is beautiful in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the best. Imam Hussein knew that because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed this to happen, it is the best for the ummah.
But, sorry, I'm going to... When it comes to Prophet Ibrahim, the blindfold, there's a difference though.
Of course, there is some sort of difference in the way it was done. But nevertheless, do not forget that Prophet Ibrahim actually put his son on a table ready to be slaughtered. Prophet Ibrahim, regardless of how he was ready to do it, he didn't turn around to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, what are you doing?
No, but
am I really going to put my son through this? Am I going to... And him having difficulty for him to get the son to begin with.
My point is that Ahlul Bayt never did that. You know, they...
No, of course. The yaqeen of Ahlul Bayt, the status that they had reached, of course, many people would actually try to disagree with us. However, without a doubt, the yaqeen of them was higher. And the proof is in the Quran. The Quran says, when it comes to the story of Ibrahim, just like we just mentioned, he says, show me how you how you create life and how you take it away. And then he says to him, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replies to Ibrahim, why did you not believe? He said, I have believed, but it is only so that I can reach more certainty.
Okay, that's interesting.
Whereas Imam Ali, like we mentioned before, says, if the veil is taken away from me, I will not increase.
Well, as a final thought, because our time is really coming to a close, in terms of this specific ziyarah, and I think I want to talk about this more in the next couple of episodes. This specific ziyarah, is this recited in the shrine, or is this recited on a particular day? How does it work with the ziyarah?
The ziyarah of Ali al-Akbar, it can be recited at any time, at any point. Usually, people do not perform ziyarah for Ali al-Akbar unless they perform ziyarah for his father first.
Yeah.
So when you perform ziyarah for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, it is good to then carry on to perform the ziyarah of Ali al-Akbar, and then to follow it by the ziyarah of the ashab,
Companions,
Yes.
yeah.
the companions, who are all buried in the same shrine. So usually, a lot of people actually stop after they finish the ziyarah of Imam Hussein, stop, and some of them even enter, even when they're in Karbala, they enter the shrine. But we must not forget that when we entering the shrine, there's also another individual who an infallible has made a ziyarah for, who has made a specific salutations towards. And we realize, again, the status of Ali al-Akbar is that none of the sons of Imam Hussein were granted a specific ziyarah. Except for Ali al-Akbar. None of the sons of Imam Hussein were granted a grave by themselves. Except for Ali al-Akbar. Not to include Tifl al-Radi', of course, who was buried on the chest of his father. But only Ali al-Akbar was granted this. And likewise with the companions, it was only Habib ibn Mudahir that was granted a separate grave and a separate ziyarah than the other companions.
Yeah, brilliant. I think on that note, anything else to add?
No.
Well, it brings us to a close
Jazakumullah
for this particular episode. Once again, many thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Ibrahim, really appreciate that.
Definitely.
And I think in the next episode, yes, I definitely want to, because the reason why I'm asking is because I know that there's a ziyarah, for example, for Imam al-Hussein on the day of Arafah. There's a ziyarah for Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura. There's a ziyarah for Imam Hussein on, for example, Eid. So do they differ in words? Do they differ in context? I'd love to kind of speak more about that in the next episode. On that.
Definitely.
But I'm going for a tea break, and afterwards, I hope you are too. I will be speaking to Brother Bilal on the specialist, so do join us. And we wish you a pleasant day.
Thank you very much. Likewise to yourselves.
Don't go away.
Even death was not able to separate Abbas from Hussein, just as the haram of Abbas cannot be separated from the haram of Hussein, in the same way that Safa can never be separated from the mountain of Marwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the mountain of Safa and Marwa to be from the sha'air Allah. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein to be sha'air Allah al-kubra. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that between the haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein, there is a land of mawaddah, there is a land of azar, there is a land of ishq, there is a land of junoon. This is the land of Bayn al-Haramain. So long as this haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein remains, people until the day of judgment will beat their faces and chests shouting, Ya Abbas and Ya Hussein. The divine decree of Allah is that from the land of Bayn al-Haramain, every time a tear is shed for Hussein, a tear is shed for Abbas. It is the divine decree that from Bayn al-Haramain, so long as there is a chant Ya Hussein, it will be accompanied with a chant Ya Abbas. The decree of Allah is that Abbas can never be separated from Hussein.
Welcome back, dear viewers. We just had a ziyarah of Hazrat Ali Akbar with Brother Ibrahim Ansari, and hope you enjoyed that. Now joining me, welcome warmly, Brother Bilal. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you doing this morning?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well.
Good.
I'm well.
You're bright and chirpy.
Bright and breezy, bright and breezy. Yeah.
So this morning we're going to speak about another topic relating to sort of mental health, and so we're going to have a discussion on addictions. Now, addictions are, the first thing that comes to your mind. We'd think about gambling, we'd think about alcohol, smoking, and people like me wouldn't delve into those sort of things, and I'm sure, inshallah, most of our viewers are the same. But perhaps we can talk about some of the things that are not so obvious in our minds about, the addictions that people go through, or maybe even we have ourselves. So hopefully you'll talk us through exactly what is an addiction.
Addiction is, actually, you said hopefully our viewers, most of our viewers, we pray inshallah that our viewers are not addicted to anything, but we wouldn't judge them if they were, and we advise them to get help, because it can be really difficult for Muslims to come to terms with something like addictions, where the first component of overcoming this problem is to admit I have an addiction. And if sometimes people can't even admit it to themselves or admit it to a third party to go out and get help, then they suffer in silence. So that's one of the real problems, and something that we really want to avoid. So we're not necessarily, we're not here to judge, but we're just here to analyze and kind of explore a bit. So an addiction is something where it's a behavior that a person feels that they need to repeat. It's talking about something that a person feels almost a psychological compulsion to repeat, and it's something that disrupts their life, that they're unable to, it may affect their performance or affect their quality of life. In terms of if they don't fulfill this kind of behavior. So it's a compulsion, but not like an OCD compulsion, but more like a compulsion in respect to a specific thing, substance, behavior, thing. Do
they get a high from it? Is that how it initially sets in, the triggers of an addiction? Because you will not get addicted, correct me if I'm wrong, overnight. So I wouldn't start smoking today and be addicted to it tomorrow.
Although some people say that crack cocaine is that strong that the first time that people smoke crack cocaine, psychologically, the kind of high it gives them, that psychologically, they can be bound up with that demon. They can be bound up with that. They're always searching for that hit. So the high they receive the first time takes them to a certain kind of dimension, that after that, for those people that unfortunately ruin their life, what they're trying to do, they're still chasing that first, trying to get back to that first one that they never can get back to.
Oh goodness. So, and what kind of substances are common that people are addicted to?
So you have chemical and non-chemical. So chemical, most famous is alcohol in our society in Great Britain. Acceptable, taxed, legislated for, but acceptable in society, which is quite bizarre because people die from alcohol-related diseases by the hundreds on a yearly basis. With a car accidents or sclerosis of the liver or other kind of medical complications. So we think about alcoholism as a first, but there's cocaine, there's crack, there's other hallucinogenic drugs. The list goes on in terms of heroin and skag, and there's so many different forms of chemical addictions, but there's also non-chemical addictions which people don't really often talk about.
Which are?
For example, gambling. Gambling is in the DSM, this manual that they use to formally diagnose people with various either mental health illnesses or, for example, like even addictions. So gambling is in there, but also non-chemical addiction. I believe there is something, and there's lots of literature to suggest, there's something called porn addiction, where people watch pornography, and it, like gambling, it has a impact on neurology, on brain activity, on brain chemical and brain release, and so people actually get addicted they can get addicted to non-chemical substance or practices. So like with gambling, for example, they've done experiments, research taken place, connected utensils, machinery to monitor brain activity with people who gamble, and the part of the brain that lights up are what you call dopamines, which is the same parts of the brain that light up if somebody's taken a certain amount of cocaine, for example, or other substances. When the race is taking place, there's a certain high, a certain excitement, a certain rush.
So it's the actual process that they go through with the gambling. It's not that someone may, I always naively perhaps think that perhaps somebody's going through financial difficulty and they just want to make that money, that quick buck.
It might be the in. It
could be that, but then there is the one that you're saying where it's actually they're getting a high from perhaps watching the race, horse racing, and that. So it's actually things like that.
That might be what you call secondary gain. So the reason why they're trying to gamble is to win back money they've lost, or just to make some money. However, they may be experiencing a high that they haven't even accounted for. So they don't really know that they're addicted. They just might know they've got a problem. People start lying. People start stealing. People start to, it may affect the person where, for example, they've lost their job because of certain types of behavior. They might have done something inappropriate at work has led to them losing their job. But because this is the kind of problem where people suffer out of shame and of consequence, you might have a guy, bit of a stereotypical scenario, but where he's lost his job because he's got a gambling problem. He's been hiding it from his wife. Instead of him saying to his wife, I lost my job, because he's worried about the consequences, he'll dress up, leave the house at 7:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and come back in 5 or 6 in the evening, acting as if he's still working.
Wow.
Yeah,
How do people like yourself help people that have got these addictions then?
It's extremely difficult. It's one of the challenging areas, addictions, whether it be gambling, substances, whether it's even pornography. It's quite a difficult thing to, because it's not just, how can I say, you might look at an iceberg and you think the bit of the iceberg you see is the actual iceberg, analogy being the problem, gambling. But what usually you find underneath is there's some kind of emotional deficit or psychological issue which is hidden, and you really need to address that thing that's under the surface, that's hidden, that the person is using the gambling to mask or to cope with. So with chemicals, oftentimes people are self-medicating. So people have been through traumatic experiences, difficult experiences in their life. And just like you may go to your doctor or your psychiatrist and you're prescribed something, some people through life experiences or whatever the case may be, coping mechanism have used alcohol or cannabis or different things to cope. So what they're doing is trying to self-medicate, deal with the pain or deal with the stress. So it's very, very difficult unless you can identify the base problem and also give people different coping strategies to address that initial problem.
It's quite difficult, isn't it? Because as human beings, we're complex. There's so many layers to it. So if somebody went through a traumatic experience and then to perhaps cover that pain, they then turn to something that's going to give them that initial high. And before they know it, it's not that pain that they're dealing with, it's their addiction or how they dealt with it becomes the issue. So,
exactly.
So in your role, you're breaking down those different layers that they've built up to understand what was the trigger, I guess, in there.
And it can be very challenging work because it's you're dealing with the compulsion, you're dealing with that thing about appetite and about riding the wave. And we've all had that, even if it isn't because we've been addicted to anything. But even if we said, you know what, I'm not going to eat chocolate or I'm not going to, eat a particular food, and then you have that craving, and you're not going to die if you don't eat the chocolate. No. But there's that window of when it's like, oh God, should I go to and it's about willpower and being able to resist. There is that element as well.
Absolutely.
Like in terms of the psychological, in terms of that psychological component, so it's very challenging.
I mean, tell me honestly, when I crave chocolate, it's like, no, that's it. There's not even a layer to think, stop and don't have it, because you just think, well, it's not going to cause me harm. So you just, go ahead with it. But in terms of sort of like, how do therapists talk to people with addictions and try to reverse and, get them out of the habit of doing what they're doing, whether it's the alcohol, gambling, drugs?
Some talking therapists may take the long approach, where they just try to understand the person as a whole individual. This addiction is one aspect of many issues that they're trying to address, and even underneath that issue of addiction, there's more developmental things that may have impacted them in their formative years. Neglecting the family or whatever it is on an emotional level, and try to work with the person to understand, help them to modeling accepting that person and not judging them, modeling how they can be accepting of themselves, in other words, accepting ourselves with warts and all. We're not perfect, but we can actually come to terms with, look at ourselves in the mirror, who we really are, and accept that, and help the person to kind of gain skills or a desire to move beyond using this substance and really contemplating, by really coming to terms with how it's not helping them and how they can receive, what can they do to manage life without this particular behavior. So that's one way. Well, some people are some therapists, cognitive behavior therapists tend to be, oftentimes more technique and more specific problem orientated. So they may go after the addiction, go straight for it. And that might mean, you're using certain techniques to elicit emotion. So you might speak to somebody with an addiction, and you ask them to talk about, you start to explore how it's played out, when did it start, so on and so forth, and they may speak in a kind of almost like a self-editing way, or maybe leaving bits out of the story that is quite important, but they might not think it's important. So what some therapists do, for example, is bring paraphernalia into the room to really solicit or evoke the kind of emotions to help the person dig that bit deeper about what's going on in the process. So they might mean bringing in flour, but in a bag that looks like what cocaine is sold in. For example, if the person's addicted to porn, like bringing a remote control in, or some kind of paraphernalia that represents the remote control to turn, to not turn, to download, to whatever it is, and then go through certain processes in terms of the exploration to really find out what's going on, to really assess and analyze what's going on for the person.
I was
emotionally.
reading, somebody had written to a sheikh, and it was posted on social media about a young boy, late teens, sort of saying, I find it very difficult to not glance at women of the opposite gender. So, and I was thinking that's quite interesting, because he has to somehow find a way, doesn't he, to undo what he's thinking, because it's causing him haram. But you don't know where that could obviously lead to later. But he's recognised in himself that this is not right, and I don't want to be doing this. So, and I thought it's quite commendable that at the age that he is, it's quite a natural thing to for some people to look for the opposite gender. So, really, is it easier the younger people are? Or is it sort of, as we get older, we just become more complicated, and we just, bury our issues deeper and deeper, and then we just have ways to cope? Or is it sort of something that it doesn't matter about age? It's,
Well, people struggle with addictions at many different ages.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's very hard if people have been ingrained in that thought process and behavior thought process. It's almost as if it's part of their behavior. It doesn't mean because they've been, say, for example, taking something like heroin for 20 years, they can't stop.
Right.
Of course they can stop. It might take an extreme amount of effort on their part, and having really good safety mechanisms in place. And it may mean even falling off the horse a few times, failing, quote unquote, failing before they really succeed and they're clean for longer periods of time, if not, leave that substance alone. It's doable, but yeah, for sure, it's harder for people the longer they've been ingrained in a certain behavior.
Is there a certain personality that gets more addicted to certain substances, or is it something that it's irregardless?
Well, there is some information to say that there is an addictive gene, but there's so many environmental factors and environmental cues that need to be, I believe, there, and that will tell you more than a kind of genetic disposition to an addiction. There needs to be a social context, a personal narrative, that ties into people's lives, as opposed to just kind of saying, well, there's an addictive gene, there's a gene for this, there's a gene for that. Because human beings are complex. Yeah. And we're kind of nature, nurture, and how the two interact and interface. Yeah. It's that deep.
Any last words before we finish for this morning?
We all struggle with willpower. The power of Ramadan, the power of fasting, the Sunnah fast, that's one of the master keys. Even as a psychotherapist, I'm just saying, as a Muslim, the power of fasting. Wow.
SubhanAllah. It's amazing, isn't it? You're actually, it's very good advice. And I think, how true. Thank you so much. We are nearing the holy month of Ramadan, so
It's a pleasure.
good opportunity to perhaps help ourselves if we've got certain habits. Inshallah, you have a blessed day, and we'll see you another morning.
Thank you.
Now we're going to the kitchen, and we'll be joining Sister Sana and Sister Fahima.
Thank you, Zahra. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Morning Baraka, Health and Nutrition. And we're here today with Sana. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you for having me again.
So we have another recipe to go through, but I can see very few ingredients. Can you explain?
Yeah, so we're going to make something simple again, practical and quick. I believe sometimes the simple ingredients taste the best at times. And I'm going to make a beetroot and red onion salad with olive oil and parsley and coriander.
Okay, so all the dark colours in there.
Yes, definitely. And first, to begin with, what I'm going to do is chop the onion and the parsley and coriander, just because the beetroot has the dye, so I leave that till the end.
Okay, well,
so
while you do that, I explain a little bit about the red onion. It's really good for you. A lot of the times we might complain the fact that it might give us some, strong breath, which we might not particularly like.
Yeah.
But actually, even for children, if they were to chew on it, or even us as adults, it actually helps against tooth decay. So it's a really good ingredient to have.
Exactly, yeah.
For those purposes. And looking at the beetroot, might not be everyone's favorite, but I've been doing a bit more research on that as well. And it's really, really got a lot of medicinal properties in it.
Yes.
And also athletes will eat beetroot like an hour or so before their actual training or competing.
Oh, wow.
Because it actually boosts and gives them that energy, and it's really healthy for you. So I wasn't aware of that until I decided that, wow, I need to research on this a little bit further.
Yeah. No,
I haven't really realised that.
I haven't heard of that as well, and I guess many foods have so many benefits that again we're not aware of.
Of course, it enhances their performance. So if athletes use that, you imagine how much we can benefit. Generally, just on our everyday, lives, because we find ourselves very much with fatigue, taking on so much and not having the energy, not having the time to always have the right proper food.
Yes.
So to prepare something like this, it's really good. And beetroot could be used as a dip, as a juice. It can do, yeah. Even the leaves. So there's many things that you can add to that. It doesn't have to be just in its whole form.
Yeah, and again, it's not a typical kind of salad that you would normally make at home. And again, I would advise that you do try and change the salads at home, because once you get used to the same salad, or your children get used to the same salad, that's all they will want.
That's true.
So just now and again, try to change it around.
Different ingredients.
Exactly, and they will start to kind of get used to the different types of, salads that you kind of do at home.
Of course, it's good to have selection and variety, and it gives our palate that excitement, to be honest.
Exactly, yes.
I can just smell those red onions.
They
are
are
really strong.
And when you're talking about palate, part of in my child development course, what I had learned was that different children have different types of taste buds at different stages.
Yes.
So if you try to kind of try and give them little bits of things that they're not used to every day, from a very young age, those taste buds will start to get used to the different textures and flavours, and so they won't become such fussy eaters as they grow.
I was going to say, because a lot of parents might force them and worry that they're not eating, but they don't realise, because they are actually still growing and developing, that it's okay for them not to like certain things. But then it doesn't mean you give up on that, because a few months, whatever stages down the line, you can reintroduce that, or even be more creative in the way in which you introduce it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the issues.
I've heard of beetroot cake as well, by the way. Have you heard of that?
I have actually. Yeah, I've never tried that.
No, I haven't either.
But I have actually heard about that.
Yeah, I remember that.
There are different ways that you can kind of explore. I guess when we have carrot cakes, no one thinks about a vegetable in a cake.
Exactly.
But it does actually work. So try and research different ways, because we don't always have to stay with the same food. We can try and make things different at home, and you never know, you may enjoy it more, your children might enjoy it more. Just try and experiment. And I think with younger children, as parents, when we want to give them food, we want them just to be full, and we're just thinking, oh, they haven't eaten.
Exactly.
And if they don't want to eat this, we won't give it to them again, because we know they're not going to eat it. Don't give up. Persist. Give the same things to them that they wouldn't ordinarily have, and you will see they will start to have it. So, a good tip there.
An important point that you also mentioned earlier is that we do stick to the same sort of thing, the same foods. And especially with me, I'm just thinking back, every time I make a salad, it's exactly the same ingredients that I use.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, we're making a salad, what's so special? But to actually give awareness that, these different ingredients added to the salad can make it so much more exciting.
Exactly,
and,
yes.
it's so much better to have that variety and selection. And as we know, and we're learning so much benefits that come from it, we can actually, you know, do that and benefit in so many ways.
Exactly, and that's the main thing. It's all learning. Like, no one knows how to do everything perfectly.
No,
it's all learning stages. You may have friends or family that you've seen have made certain things. Ask them questions, incorporate it into your own daily cooking. That's what I've done.
Definitely.
You know, you're not born to be able to cook things.
Yeah.
You know, ask
You
questions
learn.
and
You
learn
learn.
and find from different, you know, countries. Don't stick with the same things.
Absolutely.
You know, kind of change
Mix it.
mix it up, make it your own.
That is very much red, and you can see on your gloves as well.
Yes.
Just be careful with your clothing because it does stain, and that's one stain that's very difficult to come out.
Exactly, and also I would say that don't be worried when you go to the bathroom and you see certain colours. The dye is really strong, and it's not. Some parents or adults would think,
worry,
you know,
of course,
it's something
that's
else.
very, very
if you've had
helpful.
beetroot the day before, just bear in mind that you may see something red when you go to the bathroom. So just to have that
of course, for
in
nutrition
mind.
and health purposes.
So now I've just mixed that all in, and that's it, everything's done there. I'm now going to add the olive oil.
So you do sort of garnish it with.
With the parsley and the coriander,
Right.
yes. So now what I'm going to do, olive oil, which is my favourite, which we've been using quite a lot.
We've been using almost all the time,
Yes, exactly. Depending on your taste buds as well, I would put about probably a tablespoon and a half in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's not very much amount either.
Exactly. I just find that it really kind of changes the whole taste of the salad.
No, of course. And even with the onion, it will soften it a little bit.
Exactly, yes. Right. And we're also going to put some salt and pepper in there.
So how do you find bringing up children to have a kind of etiquette while at the dinner table?
It's good that you brought that up, actually, because it is something that we should focus on at home. With myself, what I do is on the dinner table, I will imitate what I expect them to do.
Absolutely.
So kind of representing the good ways of eating on the dinner table. So, for example, starting with salt, ending with salt, as the Prophet used to do, peace and blessings upon him. And so I think we need to kind of make that a daily type of routine with the children.
No, absolutely.
I mean, now I end up sometimes forgetting, and my children remind me, Mama, where's the salt? So I think when you kind of say that and you incorporate, they'll start to kind of get used to that. And in terms of what you were saying with the etiquette, teaching your child to close their mouth when they're chewing.
I was just about to say, you know, etiquette involves so much other manners and ways in which we sit, the way in which we actually will chew our food. It's not just Islamic, it is really just some sort of like, you know, discipline when you're sitting amongst other people and you find adults that are chewing and eating loud and, you know, you can hear the noises coming out. It's really irritating personally, but at the same time, it's just really not nice. So you have to teach your children how to sit properly, how to eat properly, how to, you know, use, you know, if they're going to use the utensils in a particular way, you know, elbows and whatever it may be on the table, not holding your head while you're sitting there, you know, frumping or whatever it may be. Because, you know, all these things do make a difference. And I think it can, you know, your posture, I work with people, obviously, like I said before, with their mindset, but standing and sitting in a particular way makes a huge difference as to how you're going to approach certain things as well.
Yes.
And come across, even if you walk into a room and you stand tall, you know, whether you're tall or not, but, you know, you stand with confidence, it brings a different vibe.
Definitely, I would agree with that. And I think, like you were saying, with your children at home, if you do...
They will input.
If you do certain things, they will imitate you. They will copy you. So everything that they do is from what they've seen you do. So just bear that in mind.
And don't be afraid to correct them. A lot of the parents will not correct them. You know, you see them, and these are young children learning, and they have no idea. And unless you correct them, and yes, it can be annoying if it's consistent because they don't remember, and we know they're still developing in their minds. But don't give up, because when you're in public, at least you know they're going to be sitting and having those manners and discipline that needs to be.
Exactly.
Because they do represent you, they represent your household, they represent your teachings. So don't forget that.
Yes,
and it's really, really important.
It's really important. I think, like you said, when you start it from the very beginning, it's a lot easier to get into. Don't leave it until they're a bit older, and then you find it tricky to kind of, you know, get them to understand.
Well, they themselves will find it a lot harder because they're used to something for so long. So just do take that into consideration.
No, definitely.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah, that's the
finish.
The finish, yes.
Okay, let me have a
taste. Don't worry if you get onion breath, anyone.
No, it's fine. I'm going to finish this before I talk.
It's something different, isn't it? Something that you probably haven't.
It's really lovely. And I love the garnish, and I love the olive oil, and I love beetroot, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean,
it's really, really nice.
You can also add vinegar in there if you would like to. Obviously, it depends on how
it doesn't
you
need
taste.
it, to be fair.
It doesn't, no.
Mm-mm.
It's kind of a good balance of everything. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It's really lovely. Thank you, Sana.
You're very welcome.
It's a lovely, lovely salad, and something I will definitely choose to have a selection and variety, and adding that to my table, definitely.
That's no problem.
Thank you so much for watching. Inshallah, we will be back with more delicious recipes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Over to you, Zahra and Ali.
Yeah, so we've had a lot to cover today. Now I guess I'd love to wind down. Yeah, to a nice, cup of tea in a nice way to wind down and just to bring everything to a close by getting to understand a bit of an insight into some of the topics that are miscellaneous.
Relevant to us though, aren't they?
Relevant, yeah, very relevant.
So perhaps not
but different.
Yeah.
And we're going to discuss one of your favourite subjects, Zahra?
Yes, pets.
Yes.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're going to be discussing pets and the permissibility of keeping pets, I guess, from a historical perspective, the Imams, and also extending that, I guess, to the respect that we should have to animals.
Yeah, I think sadly that, I think this topic is important because a lot of people from outside our faith don't understand how the prophets, how our guides have shown us the respect towards animals and creation. And I think that it would be a good opportunity for us to say, well, actually, give some examples from yourselves that, how animals are treated with respect, and we're not barbaric and out to just eat them all the time.
Yeah.
So, and I had a personal question because I have a neighbour's cat at the moment.
Cat sitting?
I'm not cat sitting, no. I've been left with this cat who was abandoned when she was a kitten. Obviously a baby and a kitten, she's a kitten. And she then was adopted by my neighbours, and then they've moved now. So they've left this abandoned kitten, she's a cat now.
It's quite horrible, isn't it, to move?
Yeah, and actually this
nice.
This cat has abandonment issues. She doesn't trust human beings. And she comes to the back of my garden and she will just stare into my house, and it's her way of saying, give me food. So I really want her to come into the house because it's winter, it's cold. And I'm afraid of, people saying, well, the cat hair, the prayer, permissibility. So again, perhaps other people have that query and they want to have, maybe own a pet, a cat. What's the rulings?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The rulings I'm going to be taking are from the Risala Amriya of Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq Shirazi Hafidhullah. And keeping pets in general is actually mustahab, it's encouraged. Birds, fish, they're really encouraged to keep. Yes, it does get a bit problematic with certain other animals, which we'll discuss.
Yeah.
One thing that we can really understand and we know, which is haram to keep, is a pig. You can't keep one of them as a pet. I don't think anybody would.
You wouldn't want to, no.
You wouldn't want to because of the najasa. Now, the other animal that is also najis is the dog. So does that mean that we can't keep dogs? Not necessarily. We can't keep dogs as pets, But if there is a reason you need a dog, you require a dog. For example, if you're blind, you need a guide dog.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have one. If you live in an area where there's a high risk of robberies and stuff, security dogs.
Just before you move on to security, with the whole blind dog thing, do the Nagasa rules also apply? Or because you can't see it, you can't verify it, therefore?
I would assume yes. I haven't come across something different.
So, for example, we're allowed to keep that dog,
yes,
as you mentioned, right? But of course, as a person with that disability, I'll have a carer.
Yes.
Now, that carer obviously would have to be careful of the najasa of the dog.
Indeed.
But then, does that najasa also apply to the person who's actually inflicted?
Yes. I mean, if that person, that blind person, has to go pray,
yeah,
he'll have to go ask the carer, is there any dog hair on me? Because I'm not allowed to pray with dog hair.
Not the dog licking the person,
dog licking,
perhaps not seeing
if
it.
the dog licks, you just wash it.
But if they lick part of this, and I don't see it because I'm blind.
The blind person would have to probably ask the carer that, look, can you see any evidence of dog hair or dog saliva on me?
So it applies to a certain extent.
Indeed.
To the extent that you can see it.
The best thing to do is you actually have your own room for prayers, a dedicated room for prayers, and also dedicated garments for praying. Yeah. That way you always know that these garments are not in contamination with any of the animal, and neither is the room. And you can go pray, and with that peace of mind, with that there's no najasa on me. And furthermore, the purpose of you having a dog, mine was for security. Okay, I can't get a cat to secure my garden, nor can I get a parrot. One could argue, why don't you get CCTV and things like that? I can. There's no issue with that. But the CCTV prevent...
But you could have a person on their own who wants a dog because they're scared. They're living on their own, they're elderly, and they want something that's going to, perhaps an intruder in their home. I mean, there's lots of...
This is a valid reason for you to have a dog. And obviously you have a reasonable dogs, I've read in studies that the dogs that most of these people who do burglaries are scared of are the small ones.
I was going to say
because they make the most noise.
Yeah.
That's what they say. They make the most. They're not intimidated by dogs. They'll throw them, a piece of meat or this or that. They say the small ones are really annoying. They make a lot of noise and they don't, settle down. And that's the ones that they really don't like. But there is a lot of issues in regards to najasa and hair, and there's also diseases that they can bring in, fleas. So there's a hygiene issue as well in regards to having animals such as a dog in your house. But other animals, for example, like you were discussing a cat. Cats are really clean. I have a cat. They're more clean than humans. I'm not even joking. These things are phenomenal in regards to...
Do they have fleas?
My cat don't. And even if they do,
I'm saying potentially they can get fleas.
They can. We're talking a human being. They can get nits in their hair. But it's all about hygiene. But cats are really, really clean. Like even when they go to the toilet, they're actually ashamed of what they've done. That's why they cover it up. You'll see cats always cover up. Yeah, when they cover it up because they're actually embarrassed. I made that.
Amazing.
They're so clean. And with cats, some may argue with the salah issue. Now, say Sadiq Shirazi Hafadullah, he says that when you are praying, and if you notice cat hair on you, you stop where you are, you remove the hair, and you carry on. It doesn't make your salah batil. It doesn't, cause any other issues. If you prayed and later on you found that there was cat hair, I believe that you don't have to repeat the prayer. Right. It's okay.
Because I always wondered about cat hair, because if you have a domestic cat that's indoors, doesn't really go out, and there's a hair, then people would say that would invalidate your prayer. You can't have a cat. But I have guinea pigs, and when I'm petting them, I find guinea pig hair on my clothes, and I was thinking, well, what is actually the difference apart from they're in a cage?
So guinea pig hair is okay to pray on?
I've not heard it's
not
disallowed to.
With animal hair, we have to have hadith and fatwa specific to that animal hair.
Right.
So there's nothing to say all animal hair or anything like that. It has to be the specific. They have to give us each animal. And so far there's been fatwa on dogs and cats.
Right.
That's it. So we know with dog hair, batil, with cat hair, remove it and carry on. If you prayed with it and later on you found out it was cat hair, you don't need to repeat. It's okay. It's not a problem.
Wow. So I can bring in the cat.
Look, I guess the whole reason why we ask is because you made a great point off air, and in terms of children and pets. it's a whole different ballgame, because you can start to teach young children about emotional intelligence, about how to react to different things, people. But then when you get a pet involved, they then start to feel that nurturing ability to care for something, know when that animal is annoyed or upset or hungry or whatever, and that gives them those skills to be able to develop more emotional intelligence better than
that's really important.
Than games or iPads or stuff.
Exactly.
I think with animals, animals themselves as well as human beings, they can sense emotion and they can sense feeling.
That's amazing.
And you know, for children to develop body language as well, to learn how to care, how to show affection, also responsibilities.
Exactly.
They say if you want to keep your children grounded, put your responsibilities on their shoulders. So if you give them a pet and say, right, you need to take care of this, you need to make sure it's fed and so forth.
They like it, don't they? Children actually revel in like, I'm grown up now.
They do. They like that sort of stuff.
They really do feel a sense of responsibility. It's like, wow. And that's the thing with kids. If you give them that responsibility, that they feel like they're part of the family, or they feel like they're growing up, especially at an age of around maybe 9, 10, 11, where hormones are starting to kick in a bit, and they feel like they're bigger than they actually are. If you give them that sense of responsibility, it teaches them tenfold what they can learn again from iPads. And it's a whole another discussion we can have, but in terms of children and their development
and interaction with pets,
with pets is key.
I mean, I think even with people say about guinea pigs, but you know, what's the point of them? But they are actually really like they will sit outside when we're in the family talking, and they enjoy it. And when we're not in the home, they'll be hiding away in their little boxes. And, and you know, they really do pick up. And so I was reading about what's a sign of a guinea pig being happy. They don't apparently sleep a lot, but they will they close their eyes and they're very drowsy, and you can tell it's nice to see that you can give that comfort to an animal, because otherwise it'd probably be eaten outside anyways. It's like left in South America.
Enough foxes in
well, exactly. And I almost feel like it's, you know, if you're giving that love to an animal, I sometimes wonder, do they know that it's being taken care of, and maybe in its little heart it gives like, you know, God bless you, like, you know, taking care.
They
I'm gonna sound crazy.
Maybe they do a little daffy, maybe.
Do they actually feel if, for example, after 3 years of having a cat? Because I remember a relative's house, from the first day the first 2 weeks this cat was born, it was brought into this house, in a relative's house, and the first maybe 6 months it was of joy. Like the cat would run around, you could play games with it. After about 6, maybe a year, it just became a very boring cat. Comes in and out, does his own thing.
That's quite common.
Yeah, no, I know. I realized that. Yeah, and then it just does its own thing. But does that cat still have an affiliation with the family? Certain key members of that family.
Definitely.
And for example, the question is, after 3 years, they had to let go of this cat. They had to not release it, but give it to another family. Will that cat actually feel that connection lost?
With cats, they're so disloyal. As long as you feed it, they're happy.
Okay.
But I can tell you, for my cat, when my mum goes to Pakistan, she goes for like a long time. She goes for 4 or 5 months. When she returns,
the cat will show.
The cat, she runs to my mum, and then she starts walking around her feet and everything. And then meowing and be like, can you feed?
So that neighbour's cat we've got, and I said she was a little kitten when she was abandoned. You can still see the effect on that kitten. I keep saying child, kitten being abandoned and now not trusting humans. But then when her owner went away for a few days, she was sort of in the garden, and he said when he returned, she was so happy to see him sat in his lap, let him stroke her, and she's not affectionate. So it does impact animals. They do have that intelligence in them to obviously respond to human beings. I think I feel if you do show them that love, if you do it for the sake of Allah has created this, these pets and animals, then by us showing that love, and I'm sure there's examples that you could possibly give about that Ahl Bayt.
The biggest example we can give is Abu Abdullah Hussein and his horse Zuljana.
Oh wow!
That's the biggest example I can give. That's a very special, unique relationship. And how the horse wouldn't leave the body. The horse would run circles around Abu Abdullah to protect it.
Even when it arrived to Karbala, the horse
wouldn't
move.
it wouldn't move. It wouldn't go forward.
That's when Imam Hussein knew this is the place they had to.
Yeah. So that's a clear and big indication of interaction between humans and animals. And furthermore, we have so many stories of the Imam and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of birds, in terms of there was one with the Imam Sadiq at Fajr time. Birds will be tweeting outside his house, and people will be like, "Why are they tweeting? What's going on?" And he will say, "They've come to ask for their risk. I have to go give them food," and he will give them food. There's others. You were talking about a deer.
Yeah.
Would you like to elaborate?
Right?
No, in case it's wrong. So, but what I would say is that I read the story in China. No, sorry, it was in Russia and Georgia, that this dog got misplaced from its owner. And what happened is the owner, they were separated for 3 years, and this dog was in one of the squares, and the owner's friend saw, there's a dog that looks similar to your dog. Do you want to come and see if it's your dog? And so the man went, and the way the dog ran to its owner after 3 years and was whimpering, and it was almost like crying and telling its story that, where have you been? And it was so emotional to think that this animal 3 years was on the streets, homeless, and then found its owner. Wow. It's awful how we do treat animals in some parts of the world, that, we're teasing them, we find it funny, and it's really not, because, I think in this country, around bonfire night, they'd actually strapped a cat with fireworks. And, why would you do that? It's just so inhumane.
I think it's a good time to mention that from our culture as well. We come back, we don't really have animal rights, and we don't have respect for animals. They just look at them and they think we can do as we please, where we really need to appreciate and recognize animal rights, especially from an Islamic perspective, where we had one episode we were talking about fishing, and you're not allowed to fish for sport because it causes harm to the fish. So we're not allowed to bring harm to other creations. This is not acceptable.
And I think if you see a stray animal, feed it. It's nothing. It's a creation of God. So surely you should.
So ironic that there's sports like, for example, pigeon shooting.
Yes.
Or fox hunting, and that's seen to be either okay or not okay or whatever it is. But things like halal or fishing, where we have the best interest of the animal in mind. And that seems to be barbaric or something along those lines. Anyway, there's another thought. On that note, any more questions, Zahra?
No.
I think
I'm happy I can get a cat.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Well, look, really appreciate your time once again, Syed. Hopefully look forward to many more episodes to come. On that note, from myself and Zahra and all from Morning Baraka team, we wish you a blessed day. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum and good morning to all. It's a Friday morning, it's the start of the weekend, and
Alhamdulillah, today is the birthdays of the Holy Prophet's great-grandson and Shaheed of Karbala, Hazrat Ali Akbar, peace be blessings upon him, son of Imam Hussein. Peace be and blessings be upon them.
Yeah, it's an important time to remember him, and this week the celebrations continue, alhamdulillah. Today the celebrations start with Brother Mustafa Ali with our very important Holy Quran recitation with ayahs from Surah Maryam.
Looking forward to that. And straight after that we have Brother Ibrahim Ansari on the couch with daily du'as, which include beautiful recitations and explanations. And today it's about Ziyarah of Hazrat Ali Akbar.
We also have psychotherapist Brother Bilal Ali dropping by to discuss addiction affecting many people in our community.
Please do watch if you've been affected, as we're here to help. Today we have beetroot and red onion salad with life coach Fahima Muhammad and Sister Sana, so looking forward to that.
Sounds great. We also have your fiqh questions and queries answered by our very own Sayyid Mohsin Shah. And today's discussion is about pet keeping.
One of
Cats,
my favourite
dogs, guinea pigs.
For competition details, please stay tuned. We have Brother Mustafa Khatib.
The whole city of Karbala is home to tragedies, heartbreak, as well as treasures and wonders. Millions from around the world come to this sacred city with their prayers and tears. As well as being home to Imam Hussein Media Group, it's the home and resting place of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and his brother Abu Fadhil Abbas alayhum as-salam. Imam Hussein sacrificed his life for the sake of truth and preservation of the religion and teachings of his grandfather Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Imam Baraka says, order our Shia to visit the shrine of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, since doing so increases sustenance, extends life, removes evil, and that visiting the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is a duty upon every believer who believes in Imamate from Allah Almighty. So we invite you to come to Karbala and come to visit your Imam and perform ziyarah. Unfortunately, not everyone can come visit Imam Hussein. Not everyone has the ability or opportunity to visit regularly, and that's why Morning Baraka is giving you the opportunity to perform ziyarah from your very homes. We want you to send in your du'as and names of your loved ones so we can recite the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam on their behalf. Maybe you have a loved one whose name you want to put forward, a marhum who would benefit, or maybe you miss Karbala and yearn to see Imam Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him. Why not send a small message or a dua for us to read here in the holy city of Karbala? Whoever's name you put, whatever dua or small message you have, the Morning Baraka team will pass it on to our team here in Karbala, and we will recite the ziyarah, read the message, and broadcast it on Imam Hussein TV3. Send in your names, du'as, and small messages to Morning Baraka at sign Imam Hussein TV, or messages, or leave a comment on any of our social media platforms. We look forward to hearing from you, and may Allah and the Ahlul Bayt accept all of our a'mal and our ziyarah, inshallah.
Yes, welcome back, and to kick-start today's series or today's episode of Morning Baraka, we're of course going to be joined by Mustafa Al-Ali. Mustafa, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Alaikum salam. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Today, inshallah, you're going to be reciting Surah Maryam, verses 93 to 98. So over to you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن كل من في السماوات والأرض إلا آتي الرحمن عبدا. لقد أحصاهم وعدهم عدا. وكلهم آتيه يوم القيامة فردا. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات سيجعل لهم الرحمن ودا. فإنما يسرناه بلسانك لتبشر به المتقين وتنذر به قوما لدا. وكم أهلكنا أهلكنا قبلهم من قرن هل تحس منهم من أحد أو تسمع لهم ركزا صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Many thanks for your time once again and for your beautiful voice, Mustafa Al-Ali, to start the show. We're now joined by Ibrahim Al-Ansari. Assalamu alaikum, Ibrahim.
Alaikum assalam.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah. How about yourselves?
Doing well, doing well.
Good, thank you very much.
It's definitely
Yeah.
part of the show that me and Zahra definitely look forward to, because from the many episodes that we've had with you before, it's a part of the show where essentially, just for the benefit of the viewers, the daily du'as. So the supplications, the literature of the Ahlul Bayt, the vehicles in which we discuss with God subhanahu wa ta'ala that the Ahlul Bayt used. We kind of shed light on some of the parts that people don't put much emphasis on, and hopefully kind of disseminate some new wisdom, new knowledge that people didn't know about. And Ibrahim, you do this perfectly. We very much enjoy our time with you. Yeah.
Your good thoughts. Jazakumullah khair.
So I think from the last episode we discussed the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and in the last line there was a particular area that mentioned وَأَطَعْتَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ حَتَّى أَتَاكَ الْيَقِينَ. So we were discussing a lot about yaqeen, and we kind of just focused on that. We didn't have much time, so I think this episode we'd love to kind of get more information about yaqeen. And I think off air, me and Zahra were talking about yaqeen from a fallible perspective. So from an infallible perspective, as Zahra and you were mentioning, he's an infallible, so he understands yaqeen before. So he understands what certainty is before that event arises.
Yeah.
But okay, leaving that to one side, let's focus on a person who's fallible, and it being the birth of Ali Akbar alayhi salam, and during the month of Sha'ban. We wanted to kind of shed light on that aspect. Zahra, what do you think?
Absolutely, beautifully said.
Yeah? Yeah. So tell us, firstly, in terms of Ali Akbar alayhi salam, who he is, what his life was about really, and the aspect of his certainty, because he had a very strong stance in Karbala, and his certainty when it comes to the discussion that we had.
Definitely. Ali al-Akbar, the son of Imam al-Hussein alayhi afdal salatu wassalam, the son of Layla, who was his mother. Of course, Ali al-Akbar, as a status and in terms of who he was, it is possibly one of the best examples that a fallible can take from another fallible. So Ali al-Akbar, he wasn't part of the Imams, he wasn't an infallible per se. He was a normal human being just like we are, fallible, could possibly make mistakes, but chose not to do them. You see, once we have asma, and this asma comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once we have asma, and that asma is chosen. So you choose to be infallible. Ali al-Akbar chose this infallibility. Just like Abi Fadhil al-Abbas chose to be infallible. Just like Sayyidah Zainab chose to be infallible. This infallibility, when we say that they are infallible, we do not mean that they are infallible in the sense that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purified them in that sense, in the way that He purified the Imams. But no, they chose to not make mistakes. They chose to become infallibles. His status was so high to the extent that when he goes into the battle, Imam Hussein would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he says, Allahumma shahad, O Allah witness, that baraza ilayhim ashbah an-nas khalqan wa khuluqan wa mantiqan bi Rasulillah. That towards them has gone to battle the one who is most like the Prophet in terms of how he looks, his manners, and how he speaks. Now realize that Imam al-Hussein is saying that he is the one who's most like the Prophet. He didn't say that he is the one, as in Imam Hussein didn't say that about himself. He didn't say that about Imam Zainul Abidin, who is Imam Ali al-Akbar's brother. Of course, narrations differ. Some say that Imam Zainul Abidin was older. Some say that Ali al-Akbar was older. Doesn't really matter in terms of these discussions. So he said that he is the one that looks most like the Prophet. Now also when you come to Ali al-Akbar and you wanted us to talk about yaqeen, it is because of the certainty that he had in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the message that Imam Hussein wanted to carry on, that when the companions of Imam Hussein all were martyred, Ali al-Akbar was the first to come to Imam Hussein and he said to him, Abba hal min rukhsah? Oh father, do you allow me to go forward to battle? And at that moment Imam Hussein didn't say yes. His eyes teared up and Ali al-Akbar knew that this was his okay, let's say, his confirmation for him to go into the battlefield. So he had that sort of yaqeen. Now how he attained that yaqeen as a fallible is through the same way that